Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness. Business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramona, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast. Steve, Ramona.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. I am so fired up to have you join us today. I've been talking to my guest a little longer than most of my pre-shows, but we have some great things in common. And talking business, you're going to learn so much. Get a pad and paper out because you want to take notes. We started this podcast exploring the idea of having a purpose. And part of that purpose is a servant's heart in your work and your life. Hey, it says doing business with a servant's heart. We could call it doing life with a servant's heart. Going out, taking care of family and friends, serving as much as you can. Our guests are also going to come in and motivate you, inspire you, and educate you on servant's hearts, business, life, whatever it may be, with great stories, great ideas, but more importantly, a great way to change your life, which I love because as a host, I get this all the time. Here's your homework. Yeah, you get homework today. I want you to think about how you're going to serve yourself and serve others today, audience. And I want to think about the impact you'll create. Inaction is worse than action or the wrong action because a lot of people do not serve and they go, it doesn't work, and they haven't served somebody in a year or a month. And we're talking about service could be, hey, you've got a great pair of shoes on, to $1 million to your favorite church. Service comes in many forms. Just take advantage of that. And with our today's episode is sponsored by Pantheon Alliance. Imagine working with high-income business owners, entrepreneurs, who are building a thought leader platform to help grow your business, but also make an impact in the world. So if you're interested in social impact and making a difference, reach out to me and I'll get you all that information. With that being said, impact, serial entrepreneur, we hear it all the time. I'm one. People kind of laugh at me. Not everybody can do it. I want to put it out there, but when you can, it's a delight. I tell you that. With that being said, let's welcome our guest. Joe, welcome to the show.
Hi, Steve. It's great to be here.
Serial entrepreneur, what is your definition of it? Because you truly live that life.
Yeah, I think, serial entrepreneur has to be ready to change and ready to grow. So like in my case, I started off like in the corporate world. I worked for Kraft Foods. I did that for 13 years, kind of got my business bones. I learned the basics of business and then went on to start a business with some business partners, rock climbing gyms. And then in about 8 years, we built 7 locations, 30,000 square feet each. Had a great experience. I was managing a big team, a great team. And then a few years ago, I sold out of that business. And now I've started the next one. And my next business is Snaggle Tooth Gobi, which is focusing on buying and acquiring and operating other businesses that are focused on different types of hobbies. So like what I'm doing right now is I'm redeveloping an aquarium store that's on the south side of Chicago. So just really, I think to be a serial entrepreneur, you got to be ready to change and you got to be ready to grow. Yeah.
I saw the name of your business. Say it again. How do you say your business name?
So the name of the business is Snaggle Tooth Gobi. And where that name came from is it's actually a type of fish that lives in freshwater streams in Hawaii. That climbs waterfalls.
Wow.
So that's, aquarium business, rock climbing business. I do a lot of consulting to help clients grow their business, facing challenges, facing waterfalls, and then climbing them. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, serial entrepreneur, some people go with serial killer, serial this, like it's a negative thing.
Yeah.
I might know I'm a serial entrepreneur because people go, how do you do all that? And I was like, well, you got 3 hours of kind of give you a glimpse.
Mm-hmm.
When you say serial entrepreneur, what inspires you? What excites you about that?
I think it's going to be different depending on the type of entrepreneurship that excites you. For me personally, I really enjoy building teams and finding that team of people. And if you're trying to grow a business, that's what like a key thing. It's just having that organization, that group of people that understand their roles and are looking to grow themselves. And that's to grow a business, that's your multiplier, right? Is people that are learning and getting better and are invested in your business. So that's what gets me excited, is the team of people that make a business grow.
You have a great business approach, because I believe in teams and partnerships. We talked about before the show. I've grown my business and my brand and all that with that. What did you learn from corporate and being a serial entrepreneur to move to this approach? Those are completely different things. Working,
Right.
and tell us about those differences too.
I think the thing that is kind of sucks in a corporate world is also a thing that's really good, which is, have standards, have a focus on objective results, and hold people to those standards. I think what happens, especially if you're more like in a startup zone, is you have no standards. You're just trying to make it work, and you're chasing after your own tail. And for your team, it's confusing because things are changing, you're figuring things out, and like, what's the standard? And when you're in the corporate world, like, it's usually very obvious. You have your annual review, you have all kinds of documents to fill out, and everyone hates it. But man, that causes a lot of clarity. Like, your expectations. And so when you're an entrepreneur, like, figuring out how to set standards is a tough one. And usually, like, you kind of have to accept in the beginning, when you're getting your feet wet in a new business, you're going to have some chaos and you're probably going to miss a bit. But you have to be able to kind of look at that big picture and like pull back and like, okay, I'm going to self-reflect on what's working and not working, and address my organization to the people that work there.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned standards, because they cross entrepreneur or business owner. You got a purpose standard. And we talked about before the show about health clubs and, some businesses, we won't name names, that go out and just sign up a bunch of members. And if they don't use the gym, we're still making money. And your standards were different, even though you got approached that way. Why do you feel, and what does a servant business mean to you that have these standards?
I think, a servant business is, I think it's probably what's most challenging about it is it's a long-term play. If you have a service mindset, it's going to take a long time for customers to accept you, because they have been encountered so many times by businesses and people that are transactional and are like, I'm just going to make as much money as I can right now. And so as you look at, like the rock climbing gym business or this new business that I'm redeveloping, aquariums, it's okay. Like, customer made a mistake, and it's cost them money. It's not really the business's fault. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? Are you going to refund them? Are you going to try to help them? Like, how do you address that? And in the short term, it's really tough because money is always tight. You don't want to issue refunds willy-nilly, because you can be taken advantage on that. But then at the same time, sort of setting the tone that like, hey, we're here to help people, and we're here to have a relationship with you that's in the long term. And that's a long-term play. But when you're operating a business, oftentimes you're looking at what your P&L is for the month, and so that's a tough one. But as a leader, that's the tone you should be setting with your staff in particular, because they're the ones that are like on the ground talking to customers.
Yeah, and I like that you said transactional, because I talk to people, mentors, and probably like you do, a transactional sale that's quick. Like, hey, jump on, I'm going to buy your thing. It's $99 a month. I've not built that relationship. You haven't served them or showed that you serve, is a shorter lifespan of a customer than spending a few weeks, getting some information, get them to make a more valued decision. They last longer. I've seen asking, I've talked to coaches, they have had clients for 4 years spending $10,000 a year. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it's and look, that quick sale is for a lot of people is an addiction, right? Oh wow, I just made $1,000. It's like gambling. It's an addiction, and it's not just for the leader or the entrepreneur, but that's also true for staff as well. And so for me, I actually find it's really helpful to kind of take it back to numbers. So, looking at like online reviews, so oftentimes it's painful to look at online reviews because you're not hearing things maybe you don't want to, but hey, it's a way to be objective. And it's a way to be objective with staff. Like, hey, this isn't coming across as well as we thought. And then also just looking at, hey, how many returning customers are we having? How many people are not returning? How often do we have to issue refunds? Like, are we issuing refunds all the time? That means something's not going right. So taking it back to the numbers, I find pulls the emotion out of it, and lets us think in terms of like, are we serving people or are we just being short term?
Yeah. Data is gold. Data is a pot of gold. It's now the new gold, they're saying, especially with AI and all this, which we won't get into. But as I'm listening to you love teams and you love organizations. I love that. I get asked a lot, hey, I'm a manager of sales team. I got 5 sales guys. Right. I want to be the leader. But I also want to make sure they're doing their job. How do you handle, or how would somebody handle that with a sales or a very high-end team, making sure they're doing their job? And to be a servant to it. That's the other side. Yeah. Okay, Steve. Hey, Joe and Steve, I love what you're saying. I want to be a servant, but I got 2 guys that just are trouble for me.
Yeah, and I think, and this is where I always struggle as a servant leader, is there's an aspect of this where you just have to accept whether someone is going to come align with you and come along with you. And oftentimes you're not going to get there. Someone's past background is just too different, or they just can't accept your message, or they can't live with your message. And as odd as it might seem, sometimes the right thing to be as a servant leader, someone says, hey, this isn't working out, and you need to go find something else. And especially like as a serial entrepreneur, whenever you're entering into something new, you need to be like accepting that, hey, you're going to go through some people as you find that right fit for a team. And what always helps me when I'm thinking as a servant is just accepting and understanding that, hey, if I let people that aren't aligned to my standard and to my mission stay, then the people that are going to leave. And it just lowers the overall standard so much. And so I think that's part of that, is letting go of the people that don't work out. And then, as far as like motivating a sales team, it's what I always find is really helpful is making sure you're listening. I think particularly like if you're an experienced marketer, an experienced salesperson, like you're really good at talking. And maybe you need to step back and ask a lot of questions. And I think that's a common problem for leaders, actually, is like talking too much and not asking enough questions and not letting people talk. Because usually in between the words that people say is like what's really happening. And if you can listen long enough, you'll figure it out,
Shut up. I say it all the time. Just shut up. But I look at a Zoom room. We've been in Zoom rooms with a group of people, and there's black screens. Yeah, they've shut up, but are they really listening? And that's a really cool key. I'm going to ask a personal question because I'm very curious.
Yeah.
An audience, some of you might want to know this, but how do you find locations for your ventures? Do you have a standard?
Yeah, I mean, how do you find locations? For rock climbing gyms, it was always like, we had the locations that we own that worked, and that were making money. And so it was about, okay, let's just try to find similar types of locations. Now I'm more investing into businesses. I'm more looking for opportunities, not necessarily rock climbing gyms. And for me, like I kind of recognize where my strengths are. And my strengths are marketing towards hobbyists, marketing towards businesses that are ready to grow or on the edge of growth. And so that's what I look for. And, a business that has like a terrible location that's not in the right place, maybe that's a growth opportunity. Yeah. Or maybe it's not. Sometimes the bad thing can be turned into good. And so for me, like whenever I look at any business or I'm trying to advise someone on business, like I'm trying to look at the bad and the good and see like maybe the bads can be an opportunity. And that's usually where it is, So like this aquarium store I purchased, as an example, is they had a shark pond in it in this store, a big shark pond. And the shark pond was beloved. It had been there for 20 years. People loved the sharks. And I like the sharks too. They're cool. But you know how much square footage this thing took up? As a business perspective, it was a loser. It was expensive. The sharks ate a lot. And the customers that typically came in to see the sharks don't spend any money.
They just come see the sharks.
Yeah. They just came to see it. It was a sightseeing attraction. And so that's where like, if you can look at things and kind of reframe it, you can see an opportunity in something that maybe a lot of people would have found and say, "Oh, that's so cool," but from a business standpoint, it wasn't a success.
Yeah. No, that's a great. And then I'm just thinking about that. We get so passionate about this shark. It's like you got to really think about moving it, and hopefully, it sounds like they did or gonna, which is good. And maybe you built another structure where the shark did. We're not going to answer that question today, and I'm going to ask this question because I want to say your company name. So, and I want to know what's the future of Snaggle Tooth Gobi look like next 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, so for Snaggle Tooth Gobi, like I'm continuing to look at business opportunities. I'm very focused on this aquarium store right now and growing it, and I'm putting more investment into it. And then at the same time, like I talk to people all the time who are looking to grow their business, and I give them advice and I consult for them. I just love talking about business, and I love helping people. It's been 15 years of entrepreneurship for me. I've been through partnerships. I've been through owning it on my own. I've been through opening new locations. I've been through closing locations. And I just enjoy helping people and being a part of the conversation of business. Yeah.
You just inspired me to help other people too, which I do, but it inspired me even more, as you keep doing your things. And we're coming to the end here. Somebody 8 to 5's listening to this. They're working at Apple, for example. Like, man, Joe's talking about entrepreneur. I'm really loving it. What's the 1 or 2 things they should look at in the mirror and say before they make that decision to jump into entrepreneurship, they should think about or act on?
I think there's like two things. And the first one would be kind of recognition of reality. Like, it's tough, it's hard, it's stressful. And when you look in that mirror, like, hey, is stress, anxiety, like risk, can I live with that? So that to me is like kind of the first thing. And I know when I've talked to people that are like wanting to be an entrepreneur, I'm like, yeah, and sometimes I'm like, yeah, you know how stressful it is, right? Like it's big risk for someone. So that's kind of the first thing. It's like looking in the mirror and be like, am I ready for risk? Am I ready for stress? Am I ready for not knowing when my next paycheck is? Are you ready for that? So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I say, you can do it. Like you can do it if you choose to. Everyone can be an entrepreneur if they choose to, and there's so much to learn from it. So it's like recognize the risk and the anxiety, recognize the opportunity, and that you can grab it and do it. And all these people out there that you talk to that are serial entrepreneurs, they've had stuff, they've all been in that same place where they didn't know if it was going to work for them either. And so I can remember really well, like when I was starting my first business, hey, I was working at Kraft Foods. I was in the corporate world. And at the same time, I was on the phone, building a location, finding investors. I was working 100-hour weeks, and I did that for 2 years. And I loved it. I loved the stress. I loved figuring it out. I loved putting the puzzle together. It was so much fun. But it was really hard too. And, so recognize the reality and then know that you can do it.
Well, it's funny, Joe. We talked about writing books. You just wrote a book in the last 5 minutes. I'm going to take it. No, I'm not going to write a book. No, but it's great because it's really that simple. It's just awareness. How many entrepreneurs do you talk to and like, oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. What do you mean you didn't know? There's millions of entrepreneurs that can tell you. Who'd you talk to, Shouldn't be surprised. And I love that answer. So if you think about being an entrepreneur, we're going to get his contact info so you can reach out and ask or just send him an email and get more questions because he's definitely a servant's heart. Let's end with a fun question. This is going to be great. I can't wait to hear your answer. So I've got a reservation at a restaurant, table of 4.
Okay.
You're sitting one of the chairs. So you've got 3 empty chairs. Who would you invite, whether dead or alive, and what food would you order for the table?
Who would I? 3 people at a what kind of restaurant is it?
Your choice.
My choice. Okay. Dead or alive, 3 people I would invite. Huh. Well, that's an interesting one. So I would love to invite Abraham Lincoln, just because of the perseverance and the smarts, and I think he was leading in a time of crisis and had to balance making it work against being a servant, So I think Abraham Lincoln would be someone I'd love to invite. Winston Churchill, kind of for the same reasons, I also think Winston Churchill and Abraham Lincoln would be really interesting to listen to them talk to each other.
It would be. Holy moly.
And then, I think, a third person I'd love to be there. And I really want to be someone contemporary, right? So that there's like the kind of those change in perspective. And who would be the contemporary person besides myself? Huh? It's in no way like a political statement on my part, but I do think it would be really interesting to have Elon Musk there. And just be like, hey, this is the perspective of these historical figures and how different it is from someone who is obviously leading very large organizations now. And how have things changed? Yeah.
Yeah. And again, sorry to interrupt because it's a conversation. We can interrupt. No, I'm half kidding.
Yeah.
I've had so many people tell me, Elon Musk, I'm the same way. I'm not good or bad, but when you can throw up a ship up there and bring it back down. And I just like to, what are you thinking? I love that. What a table. Holy moly.
And just think about just the changes in technology over that time. like you're saying, like, oh, now we're trying to figure out how to land a spaceship vertically. Whereas for Churchill, like in World War I, it was like, how do we charge machine guns without everyone being killed? And then in World War II, the advanced technology was planes that were basically made out of like paper mache and aluminum panels. And then in the Civil War, it was muskets, and Springfield rifles. That was the advanced technology. And how is that impacting those leaders? And the way they have to make decisions, and technology affects us and the decisions that we can make every day,
And everybody, doesn't matter who it is now. It's across the board. So what are we eating? Because I'm gonna have to bring a fifth chair for me.
What are we eating? Yeah. Well, of course, for Churchill, we're going to have, what do you drink? Brandy? So there's going to be some brandy at the table. You know what? I'm from Chicago, so I'm going to go with just like deep dish pizza. How's that?
You got me. You don't have to ask twice. Deep dish pizza. Yeah. It's so good, especially in Chicago, audience. When you get to Chicago, you have to have one deep dish pizza. Just try it. Trust me.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah. We actually have one here in San Jose that's actually pretty close because I've talked to people from Chicago. It's not the same, but it's pretty close. This has been an incredible show. Your servant heart exudes out of you. You really want to care. You're definitely a serial entrepreneur and you enjoy it, which gives hope for people out there listening. I know people are listening going, how can I reach out to Joe and ask him some questions? How can they find you?
Yeah, so they can go to my website, snaggletoothgobi.com, and just go to the contact form, or they can reach out to me on LinkedIn, just Joe Zentmyer on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Piece of cake. He's a servant's heart. Simple. Get it done quick.
Yeah.
Not always, but mostly. And with that being said, here's your homework at the end, because I want to thank Joe. What a great show. Spend his time with us, with me and you guys. But subscribe to the YouTube channel, because what Joe did today was a podcast gift. That's what I call them. Those links that you share with people. Hey, you got to listen to Joe. You could change somebody's life. They go, but me to be an entrepreneur, those two things. Yeah, I know I want to do it. And two, I know there's stress and I can handle it. And they take off and they become Jeff Bezos or something less. You gave them a gift. They'll never forget. It's a legacy that everybody should be building. So go ahead and subscribe to the YouTube channel or subscribe to others. Great people that you have and do the same thing. Share their links as gifts as well. With that being said, me and Joe want to thank all of you for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll see you on the next episode of Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Have a great day.